Good day, everyone.
Good day.
So we're back again in our channel Transcending Consciousness. I'm Tim,
And I'm Casey.
and for today we will discuss poverty and corruption. So this is a very difficult topic to discuss because it's multifaceted. So let's just start with one aspect first. So I would like to start with what we call the power elite. So these are beings who have this insatiable desire to acquire wealth, money, power, prestige, and at any means or cost necessary. So they have this insatiable desire to earn money, even though they won't be able to use it anymore in this lifetime because of the amount of their wealth that they amass is so vast already that they cannot spend it in this lifetime. So the presence of these beings is one of the cause why we have poverty and corruption. So these are very selfish beings, which we actually call the fallen beings because they came from higher spheres wherein they did not um, want to ascend, they do not want to give up that ghost, and therefore they fell into our sphere.
So, guys, remember in the Bible, it was mentioned in Revelations, uh, Lucifer and Archangel Michael doing battle. Okay, so Lucifer was, how did Lucifer fall? Because of pride and arrogance. Because for him, he wanted, he disagreed with how life should work, or what are the life stream should experience. So he wanted something to do in the previous universe, for example, instead of just allowing the natural laws of God. He wanted uh, to not follow God's spiritual laws and to do his own thing. So what happened is that when their universe ascended, since they do not want to change, they fell behind. Okay? And they did not fall into hell. Okay? They fell into the next new universe, our current universe. So they fell here. They are living among us. So remember, you can actually sense these beings by, not like what Dave said, these beings, they do not want to listen. They, they believe that they are always right. They are very full of pride, and they are very selfish. They only look at themselves, and they only see other people as instruments to enrich themselves. Okay, they they want the rest of the human beings to work for them because you know they have lost their power. They are in the physical realm already. So they are also disconnected with the spiritual realm. So they want us to work for them. They want to rule over this lower realm, in the physical realm, and they want to remove God away from the spiritual realm. So what they did was, they tried to they twisted, okay, they twisted the teachings, the original teachings of the founders of all religions around the world. So they twisted it, and then to suit their needs. Okay, so yeah, as you see, if you look at it closely, in every industry in our world, there are our elites controlling each industry, and we are all just working for them. Our educational system is geared towards to serve them. For example, I want to be a manager, so I take a managerial course in, for example, in Ateneo or in Lasalle. So the system is training me to be a manager of that big company I want to go in that industry. And we as doctors, okay, in our industry, we are being trained to enrich the pharmaceutical industry by prescribing their medications. And they, they send these studies proving that their medication works, but actually it's kind of, we do not know the validity of those studies because it came from them. So, as med students, we wanted to be a doctor. So indirectly, we are serving the big pharmaceutical companies and the power elite controlling that. So in each industry, just analyze, yes, we are working. They created our society based on money so that we can enrich them more. And those who who are less privileged to undergo proper education, they cannot function in the society without money. So they are left behind. So they now become the poor people. So that's why poverty exists. Okay. So yeah.
So yeah, so these people have this no disregard for the people. They see themselves as superior to the common people. So, but if you look at closely, the thinking of superiority to people is also present in you. Look within yourself. An example. So, using the Philippines. So, we do have household help in the Philippines. But how much do we pay this household help? So, do we pay them enough? So, you put yourself in their shoes. Do you think if I'm earning this X amount of money, I'm able to support my family? So if you think yes, then you are a good employer. Probably you're giving what is due to your household help. But if not, look at those things. What is the idea of you giving that salary? It is because you think this person is a lesser human being than yourself because you treat that person as an expense. So this costs for having household help, not as a person. And because you have um, objectified this person, you do not see that person anymore as a human being, simply as your tool for helping around the house, cooking, doing laundry, not as a person, not as family.
Actually, in our, for example, if we own a business, we have a lot of staff under us. Yeah, they just pay the minimum wage or just slightly above the minimum wage. That's the same concept. Uh, you know, the minimum wage or the slightly above wage will not really help them fulfill their dreams. Okay. So yes, you see, we all have that consciousness, the Luciferian consciousness of being arrogant, being self-centered. So yeah, the fall of man actually refers to all of us here on earth. At one point in our lives, way back then, we have decided, yeah, to experience what it means to be separated. And then we have that. We also have that trait. We are exposed to that kind of thinking. So we became selfish. We see ourselves as separate from each other, and then we became arrogant. We have some traits that we do not want to listen to authorities, such as our parents, our teachers. So we all have that trait in us. So that's why we attracted this kind of civilization, this kind of government, because we have that in us. So instead of, yeah, we always want to blame the government, but we have forgotten that we have that also in us, in our own small worlds, in our business, in our work, in our homes. So we have to address those things also.
Yes. So this should start, poverty. If you look at this poverty conscious, it starts at home because we have this. So look at the affluent nations, Australia, Canada. They don't have household help. People have to do their own laundry, do their cook for themselves, fix the house, mow the lawn. But they live a very high standard of living compared to us. And many Filipinos, even with those with household help, here dream of living in those countries without household help simply because it's safer, better access to healthcare, better access to facilities, no corruption, good good governance. So all of these things. So how can we change? We should start within ourselves. So if you have your own household help, treat that household help as a human person. If you have a small business or even a big business, you should treat all your employees as your family members. So you should give what is due, and simply look them up as this is the labor cost, this for of the employee, this is my X cost minus to my income because this is expense, without looking at that these employees are human beings, are person. So if you want to get rid of poverty, we should start within ourselves, within our family, within our community, before we go into higher stages. Because once a critical mass of people realize this innate humanity in all persons, treating their household right, treating the employees right, then it will ripple, and then it will result to a better government, will result to eradication of poverty. Because that poverty, yes, partly the government is at fault, but there is also that fault in us because we keep that consciousness. Do you think it's a hypocrisy if you fight for um, abolition of poverty, um,
Human rights.
human rights, and then you don't treat your household help as a human person? What hypocrisy is that?
So yes, guys, it's really useless for us to keep on ranting or bashing people in Facebook, in the news articles. So there's a portion that you can comment. It's really useless because you're only contributing to the negative energy of the entire planet, the whole human race. You're adding more fuel to the fire, to the big fire around our planet. So instead of looking at their faults, look at the beings first in our own being, in our own lives, and then change it. So that's the religion. Okay, that should be the purpose of religion, to train us. But as I said, these fallen beings, they twisted the true teachings of Jesus, of Buddha, of Confucius, of Lao Tzu. So yeah, they turned this the spiritual movement. They turned it into a religious institution based on doctrines of rituals instead of really correcting ourselves. Because changing oneself is one of the most difficult things to do, and also accepting that we are wrong and other things. So yes, we should start from ourselves instead of blaming others.
Yes, we've discussed this already in our previous episode, but look at the world, the more religious the people, the poorer the country, and the golden age of the Catholic Church was the dark ages for Europe where there was no growth. So, this negative implication, negative correlation of religiosity and wealth of the nation is because, this religious teachings is not helping the nation. They do not cater to the needs, spiritual needs of the people and what is needed in order to change, to be a better person, to be um, a better human being. So look at Scandinavia, a very secular nation with high cost of living, high standard of living, free healthcare, good governance, no corruption, no poverty, no income inequality. Many people aspire to have that kind of life. And that could be a reality here, but we should start with ourselves. So now, if a critical mass of us will do this, then in a few decades, we're not going to notice the Philippines. It will be a better nation because look at South Korea. In the 1950s, they were really poor and we were rich. But look at us now, after 50 years, half a century, we're now very poor and they're very rich. So it's because they have that mindset, the South Koreans have this mindset of helping each other, seeing your neighbor as yourself, and working towards a common goal, not bringing somebody down to raise you up. So that's what needed. If you look at the government, the role of the government is people going to government because they are willing to serve, not to enrich themselves. But it is different here in the Philippines because many of the government officials are there to earn a lot of money. Now, if you look at the salary grade of the mayors of the president, it's actually very low. But there's a lot of hidden corruption working under the scenes. Look at our PhilHealth um, system. It was an avenue for corruption because the level of consciousness of the people running that company does not have this willingness to serve. They have this only selfish mentality, looking only about themselves, their family, without thinking of the betterment of the whole of the Filipinos. And this is difficult because if you actually look at it, even the normal Filipino person have this mentality. Ako muna, bago mo ito. And if you have that mentality, that is not conducive for growth. The Philippines cannot rise above poverty and corruption if people will only think about themselves. It's high time for all of us to realize the humanity in every person and treat each other with dignity and respect by providing proper wages, by not um, selling others short or not taking advantage of other people because a lot of Filipinos, and including myself, I sometimes see the risk of taking advantage of other people. So we should have to resolve the psychology of taking advantage or using a loophole so that they can, take a shortcut. So all of these things contribute to poverty and corruption. Because in other countries you cannot, go to a shortcut or um, doctor your driver's license exam, so all those things. So let's start within ourselves, realize that we have this consciousness, this selfish consciousness, poverty consciousness, and try to change it. And it won't happen overnight. And you should not be ashamed or feel guilty that you're, having this idea, you have this desire, you have this feeling that's selfish that looks after yourself or only your immediate family. You just work on it. There's no time for guilt. We are not condemning you. We are not saying that what you're doing is bad. Well, it is not the highest, but the spiritual path has a lot of steps. And as long as you take that one step at a time, then we can reach our goal towards eradicating poverty and corruption.
And I would like to add something to this. It's very difficult for people, for the owners of businesses to give money because of fear, they think they would lose something when they give more money to others, their income will lessen. Okay, but that is not the case. Okay, the law of attraction or the law of cause and effect will states that when the more you give, the more life will bring back to you. Okay, the more you try to be greedy, life will also be greedy to you. So that fear is very unfounded. Okay, and also we also have this belief of there's not enough for everyone. Okay? The planet is not enough for almost 8 billion people, but that is not true. Okay, because of those people, those group of people trying to enrich themselves, they actually took the natural resources for free to everyone, and then they took those things, for example, the trees, okay, or the the rocks, or for example, the diamonds. They took those things which is naturally occurring, and then they took it and then they tried to sell it to others to enrich themselves. Right? So now, because of that greed, there's now not enough for everyone. So the other people are also afraid of, oh, there might be not enough for me, so I will also hoard. Okay, so we should get that notion of there's not enough for everyone. Okay, and yes, so when you try to shift your mindset from being separated to to this unified mindset that we are all a part of this world, that the whole human race is our family, then our actions will our behavioral patterns will become different. Right? Because instead of you focusing on yourself selfishly, you are now trying to uplift everyone, help everyone, and in doing so, life will also help you. So always remember that concept. Right? We should love God, or we should love our neighbors as ourselves, because we are truly a part of this one big family, human race.
So again, so very nicely put, Casey. So I'm just gonna add on our topic of corruption. So the political climate of the Philippines right now is tense. So we have this group, which is the pro administration, the pro Duterte, and the anti Duterte, the remnants of the previous administration. But let's look at this way. There's actually no one political party who has the answer or the solution for all problems. Because look at them, they both have a lot of things that were done incorrectly, like in the previous admin, the Yolanda response, the response to the typhoon. That was so inefficient, and you can see that there's so much corruption in the aid given by other countries, or jury, or the um, bad decisions of Pinoy, which led to the death of the Sub 44. Those are very, very bad um, decisions, and also the killing of farmers in the Kibipawan massacre. So all of these are, you know, bad things done by the previous admin, and they should not be taken for granted. And that is why many of us don't understand why the common people voted for this populist president, because they feel that their voices are not being heard by the admin. They have been disenfranchised by the government, and therefore they want something new, something different, and someone who can relate to them. So that's what put Duterte in power. But Duterte has its own problems. We have that, the um, human rights violation. We cannot prove, whether truly there were mass killings of this alleged drug pusher. So that thing, and also the response, what kind of response for the pandemic that you will, you like all of them are military officials, none of them are health experts. Something that's a health problem, you go to the military for help. So that's not really a very good decision. And so my point is, it's rather than supporting a party, you support an idea, you support a solution, and there will be someone who can take this. If, but I know the Filipino people may not be ready for the kind of good government, the kind of good governance that some Filipinos are able to give, that high level of consciousness. My prime example is, of course, Gina Lopez, who is a highly spiritual person who, in her short stint as the DNR secretary, did so much. You know, she was a proponent of social justice that, if you do mining here, you should have a plan for the community. What about their livelihood? Are you ruining their forest? There's the deforestation. Are you contaminating their watersheds, their pool of water? Are you doing that? So she tried everything so that it's equitable and all the decisions will not solely benefit the investors or those who are into mining, but will also benefit the community. There is sustainability in the environment. But because of his radical decisions, because of the way he challenged the elite, he was placed down. And this is another reason. There's not enough support with the common people. Not enough people rallied so that she would not be removed. And that's because the collective consciousness of the Philippines is still low at that time. So again, actually part of our goal for starting this channel is to raise the level of consciousness of the Filipinos so that we can attract better leaders, so that we can have better governance, so that we can eradicate poverty and corruption. So we should start within ourselves. It is, correct to call on the government for not doing this and stuff. But aside from doing that, you should also work within yourself. Because if you just blame everything in the government, then it will be a blame game. You will not achieve anything because you always try to victimize yourself. That, why am I or why is the response like because of this government? And yes, partly they are to blame, but how can we change them? Because they're they're really thick-skinned. So you change yourself, change your attitude, change the way you look at life, you look at other people. And eventually, if many people will raise their consciousness, will correct their ways, have a higher understanding about life, then it will effortlessly change. These kind of leaders will no longer be allowed to lead our country because we have raised our consciousness to no longer allow such a leader.
So in addition to what Tim said, guys, whoever we put in government, that group of people, if they are in the mindset, this lower mindset of separation, nothing will happen to us. Okay. So actually, if you look at it closely, when we decided to feel separated from God, to experience separation, in the Bible, remember in the Bible when God banished Adam and Eve, we are now actually crawling like the serpents, like the snake in the ground. So we are actually now limited to doing only physical work. Okay, so now we are actually looking food for elsewhere in nature. We are getting things from nature, destroying actually nature itself. But what happens when you raise your consciousness, okay, when you reach the level of Jesus, when you attain a very high level of Christ, you are not dependent on the physical actions of getting the things you want physically. You are now, you have access to higher spiritual energy, and you can actually, manifest something. Imagine all of us attaining such a high level of consciousness. Who do you think, to the point that you can actually manifest food for yourself? Okay, so what industry would fall? The food industry. Okay, when for example we are now so healthy that we don't get sick. So which industry will fall? The pharmaceutical industry, the health industry will fall. And once you are connected with God, to all life, So what industry would fall? The religious industry. So once you are so, you are filled with wisdom, do you need someone to guide you, to govern over you? No. So you see, this group of people, these fallen beings, will try to subdue anyone who would try to walk their path of ascension, their path of Christhood. So that's why they had Jesus killed in the past. And now, with our current technology, a lot of people are slowly becoming aware of this spiritual truth. So it's very difficult for them to suppress this knowledge, this wisdom that we are trying to share with you. So imagine a community of people having a higher attainment of Christhood, and all of them can really use the spiritual powers of God. So that is, for me, that is the ideal society, the vision that we have, the promise for the new golden age of the earth. So we should strive to raise our mindset from this separate mindset to the mindset of oneness, of unity. And hopefully, in a few decades, we can achieve a higher level of society. So once we achieve a higher level, so we are vibrating higher. So these beings who are still in the lower mindset are vibrating lower. They are not, they will not be allowed to embody on earth because we have a different vibration as a whole. So that's one way of actually trying to remove these fallen beings living among us, these wolves in sheep clothing living among us.
So this has been a difficult topic, and if you reach this point, thank you for viewing our videos. It's really difficult, and for some, this is a taboo topic, but we have to place this in the collective consciousness in the Philippines, so that people can hear, and some will understand, and will institute the change to change our country for the better. Thank you.
Thank you.